everybody. What's up? Thank you all for coming out. We are live with Drew Dammron. Drew is actually like a really good friend of mine because I've worked for him before, but he's like a director, a writer. He acts occasionally. He's basically all around filmmaker, and we have him here to talk about what it's like to, I guess, kind of work your way up in the film industry. How are you, Drew? Thank you for joining us.
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
So do you just, I guess, want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. I've been making independent films for about, I'd say, 12, 13 years now. I started in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after a brief career in the the funeral industry. And I just kind of abandoned the corporate world and went rogue in Pittsburgh to shoot a number of short films. I was part of a very small yet eclectic group of art house filmmakers in a since disbanded community kind of center called Pittsburgh Filmmakers. Unfortunately, they shut down recently. I'm pretty sure they might be resurrecting though. So I did that for a number of years, and then I moved out to California in 2010 to direct more, even bigger, more ambitious projects. So here I am today.
That's amazing. You've been doing this for so long too. Like way before you probably moved out here for you went to college at Chapman, right?
Yes, yep. Chapman University. I spent a few years there. Got my master's degree in production, directing, concentration, and yeah. Then I moved to North Hollywood for a little bit, and now I'm in Glendale.
So I guess how come what was film that like what was it about it that got you into it?
Um, so yeah, that's a pretty easy story. I I used to, and I still might return to it someday, but I used to write prose writing. Like I have a few like abandoned novels that never got published, and uh, a large array of short stories that I also didn't have too much luck with. And I got into film because I figured, well, it'd be easier to have somebody sit down and watch something than to read like a bulky manuscript. And that just seemed like the obvious choice to kind of transition to. And wasn't necessarily easy because I had no idea what I was doing at first. But, I surrounded myself with the right people over time, and just keeps growing.
Well, that's really good too that you got what's it called like keep doing it and that you've done it for so long and that you haven't given up on it, which is really good and that you're still working
Yeah.
to this day.
I mean, the thing about film is you have to love it in order to, it has to be in your soul. It has to take over every facet of your life to be able to not only do it correctly, but to do something that you're, you know, even remotely proud of, I guess.
Yeah. Do you want to talk too like I guess about your vision for films and stuff because I'll have to show you guys a short film. I have access to a couple of your short films, or at least one that I'm in, and some other ones. But you just have a really interesting, I guess, style. So how can you? What is your style drawn from?
Uh, it's an interesting question. A lot of people like to call it horror, but I don't think that's really the right definition. I like to use the term dark satire or even like fantasy satire because it's a combination of fantasy and horror, but I also wanted to be saying something about society and the human condition. Um, but there's a lot of gross out gags in my work, and so I recognize why the horror community would kind of be akin to it,
Hmm.
because I've been to horror festivals with my work, so it fits in very easily. Not maybe in the comedy world also, but mostly I would say horror.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Can you say musical world for just like one of the scenes?
yeah. I mean, I definitely like to do musical numbers. I think music is just such a big part of the aesthetic of what I do, and I've um I've had the fortune of meeting a man by the name of Rob Heinbaugh, who's composed for me for a number of projects now, and he's fantastic. So I always use his services for that. But yeah, music is just so important for the overall like finished product. It kind of helps dictate what maybe not be so clear,
Yeah.
just visually. Kind of helps set the mood. Like, is this supposed to be sad? Is this supposed to be funny? Because I like to confuse the senses, so there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah, that's for sure. But like overall, I don't know. It's a really cool style because you don't see it that often. It's not just like
Right,
here
right.
we've seen this before. I guess what is the most important thing that you've learned like over your years of filmmaking?
Uh, I would say the most important thing that I've learned, at least to successfully finish a product, is to surround yourself with the right people. Because, it's a cliche, but it very much is a collaborative art form. And, you can't do it alone, even though I've tried in my early days. I was holding a boom mic and running camera and doing everything at the same time. And I'm sure I looked like an idiot doing it, but, you have to surround yourself with talented and right-minded people that, and in my case, at least somewhat understand the vision, even though it might not be completely clear until the very last, day of editing. But I need people who are on board and are just as passionate about the product as I am. And, I've been fortunate to work with those people. So,
Yeah, finding people who like want to help your project become the best it can be.
no, absolutely. And, yeah, that's absolutely true. It's all about the people.
We have a question here from Joriel. He wants to know what inspires you to write stuff.
Um, for me, it's almost like an exorcism. Like, I get these ideas in my head, and I feel like I need to get them out of my head. And it used to be when I was just a writer, I needed them on the page. But now it's, an even more daunting task because I want them on a screen. I want them, captured on camera. So, it's almost like these images haunt me a little bit until they are, absolutely fleshed out on screen.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't know. I'm trying to choose my word carefully here, but it's not necessarily a demon, but it's something that's just haunting you or me, and it needs to come out, and I feel almost like relieved and almost kind of sad when it's gone, out of my head and onto the screen, because it's something that I lived with for so many months or even years.
Yeah.
So
That sounds really cool and also really scary.
you have no idea.
Okay, I knew this question will come up. Some of them have seen Little Goat, which I guess I should,
Okay.
I guess, explain it to people a little bit. Little Goat was Drew's thesis film to finish college, I guess, in Chapman. And I actually acted in it. That's how we met. But Hoofman wants to know what it was like directing me in Little Goat.
I
Probably
mean, it
so
was
horrible.
fantastic. Yeah, it was fantastic. When you auditioned for the part of Jocelyn,
Yeah.
um, I just knew right away that you were the one, because everyone else was just kind of just not getting the material.
Mm-hmm.
And you had this kind of, like, I don't want to say you brought a nerdiness to the character that I was looking for, but you did. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I wanted like a Thelma from Scooby Doo kind of concept, and you kind of nailed that right off the bat. Um, that being said, like, I just remember you as a person being very shy, which
Yeah.
obviously that has changed with the show and other ventures of yours. So I'm glad you grew out of that, because you were
Thanks.
very shy. I'm like, can you speak back to me, please? But you were younger then too, so I
Yeah.
mean, I understand. It was a phase, but um, no, it was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I guess like if you want to tell this, I guess if you probably remember a little bit about this because I think my chat would love it, but there's a curse word that I had to say in it and like how hard it was to get me to say that curse word.
Yes, and your mother actually helped with that as well. She encouraged you to say it, which helped me because I didn't want to be the guy that was pushing, you know, the young child to say something that was inappropriate. But yeah, no, I mean that was an important scene, and thanks to your family just supporting that word to come out of you, it definitely helped. So.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh yeah. And now see, now they're all freaking out that I said a curse word. That part hasn't
Oh,
changed yet.
but I'm sure you have in other projects, huh?
Yeah, totally. um,
Yeah. Maybe that was one of your first ones. I don't know.
probably. P. Kaler wants to know, with so many stories haunting in your mind, have you ever considered making an immersive play about them in the form of experiential theater?
Yeah, that's a new kind of art form. Maybe it's not as new as I think it is, but it seems to be more prevalent now than it ever has been. Um, Same thing with virtual reality. Um, I've kind of fantasized about doing just regular theater, not necessarily acting because I hate being on stage. But and I have done a little bit of stage work, but not much. Um, but yeah, I would do a play, but I think somebody would have to push me to do it. When it comes to immersive theater, that is something that I have zero experience in. I mean, I've hardly even like gone through any of that stuff. So I think it's interesting. I think I've got my eye on virtual reality even more so because I think that's something that's kind of teetering between it's going to be big, but it's not that big. It's still very niche. So, but I have a feeling that in the future, virtual reality might be a thing that I'm going to have to get involved in if
Ooh,
current trends are going to continue.
that's so interesting. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of afraid of that, but at the same time, um, you know, times change and you have to kind of keep up. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, I'd love to see like your project and like projects in virtual reality. That'd probably be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how that would go. Um, we'll see.
Oh my goodness. Um, so you also do a lot of editing. Um, what is it about editing do you like?
Um, well, definitely with my own projects, I just like being in control. I like not having to be, and I've worked with some talented editors for sure, but I like not being at the mercy of someone else.
Mm,
Because I feel like the writing and the production is just such a personal thing to me that it I'm just afraid it'll go wrong, or you know I would have to fight somebody, for what it's supposed to be, and that's exhausting. I don't really want to do that. So I'm happy that I kind of taught myself to edit and even sound design. I don't know like After Effects at all, but I never really use that. And sometimes I'll hire people for that kind of thing. But yeah, editing is, and I enjoy editing. I actually enjoy editing maybe a little more than production sometimes because I'm just by myself and I can really get into the material, without distractions. So
yeah. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on?
um, hmm. It's a hard one. I don't know. I mean, they're all different. Um, the work I did with the Bit Sketchy Productions over the past few years was fun. That definitely had its complications, though. Um, the one I'm working on now is cool too. I don't know. Like, they're all different. It's hard to answer that.
Yeah. What is the new stuff you're working on? Can you talk a little bit about it or what it's about or what you're doing with it?
Yeah. So it's called Fetus Nation, and I guess it's kind of my version of Rosemary's Baby in a sense. Only it's much more political. It's a political satire, and I'm sure you can guess what political debate it's addressing, but it doesn't really pick a side. So it kind of lampoons the conversation more than it does the actual debate, I guess. So it's an interesting project. If you ever read about me getting killed, you'll know why. Looking forward to definitely being done with it. We still have a few more scenes to shoot next month, so but everything looks great. I mean, I have such a great cast and great team behind it that it's gonna be impactful because of again, the people that have supported it and worked on it. So
oh, that's exciting. Again, it's like so exciting when you have people that are actually like passionate about your project, because it just makes everything so much more, because like they're digging into the material just as much as you are.
Oh, absolutely, and John Nodorf, my good friend and cinematographer.
He's working on it too.
Yeah, he's actually shooting this thing.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
So he's been fantastic. I mean, the images are just beautiful. So there's a strange beauty to the grotesqueness that I always want, and he really knows how to provide that. So
this sounds so exciting, and also everyone loves the name.
The what?
Everyone loves the name.
Oh yeah, Fetus Nation. Yeah. It went through a few names before we picked that one, but yeah. It'd be interesting.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Speaking of that, like, you had hair the last time I saw you, and now you don't. Is that just because of the summer, or is production stressing you out?
I would say all the above, but it's also for a character in my Fetus Nation that I won't go into too much detail about because I want to keep it kind of a surprise. But it is a trait that I needed for the character. So I shaved it all off. I actually shaved it to the skin. And then it's growing back now because I haven't touched it, but I have to shave it again when we go back to production next month. So I don't like it to the skin. It's very strange feeling, and pale. I don't like the paleness of it. So I don't know. I kind of like my hair like this. It's definitely cooler.
That's amazing.
And plus, I'm losing it anyways. So I mean, why not?
Yeah, you're committed. We love it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the passion.
It's just hair. I don't really put too much stock into it.
Oh my gosh. What would you say, I guess, is the hardest, like, what is the hardest struggle you've had to deal with in your career, and how did you overcome that?
Just the self-doubt and questioning, which I think most artists go through. I don't think it's unique to filmmaking even. That always happens. I think it, and I've never been, extremely famous or anything, but I would imagine it happens to even famous artists, that just that questioning and that self-doubt and, wondering, is what you're doing worth it? Mm-hmm. And it always circles back around to, yes, it is. Because it's one of the few things I know how to do. So just got to keep doing it.
And it seems to be working, which is really good. Sorry, I have to switch my questions room. Fat wants to know, so I just graduated film school and I'm trying to break into the industry one way or another. Any advice?
Again, surround yourself with a great team. Depends on kind of what field you're going into. A lot of people say do the PA thing, and maybe that is true. I've done some PA work like way back in the day, but it just didn't really interest me. And I kind of just self-fund my own work anyways. So, but yeah, you just gotta get your feet wet somehow. There's the studio ladder with the PA work and etc. And You keep climbing that way, or you can immerse yourself in just straight independent filmmaking and do your own thing. But either way, networking is absolutely imperative in both scenarios. So, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, everyone has their own story. There is no one-way track, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um,
Just yeah.
yeah. I guess this is like one of my favorite questions to ask people who are actually in the industry. But do you have a favorite movie?
A favorite movie. I would say A Clockwork Orange is definitely up there. I'm not sure
Makes
how
sense.
familiar you are with that, but
Yeah.
oh, you are, okay. Uh yeah, just a lot of Stanley Kubrick, a lot of Alejandro Jodorowsky, who's a Chilean filmmaker. Um, Werner Herzog. Um, I like a lot of non-American filmmakers and Stanley Kubrick, but I also like Steven Spielberg also and Martin Scorsese, even though I'm not necessarily influenced by those guys, but actually, and people may laugh about this, but I don't really care. One of my favorite filmmakers, and I do consider him a filmmaker, is Michael Landon. And I don't mean Michael Landon Jr., I mean Michael Landon, who was the creator of Little House on the Prairie in the 70s. And a lot of people don't realize how brilliant of a filmmaker he actually was. I think because of the the family values kind of orientation of his work, it kind of got lost in in uh in that because he was just so like father knows best kind of material.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I mean that show was just so brilliant in like its portrayal of America and there's a lot of creepiness in that show too, especially in the later seasons that he really experimented almost like on horror, almost like he was almost a horror filmmaker in those last seasons with some of those episodes. And there's an episode in particular called Sylvia, who that's a film that absolutely has shook me to the core and still does. And I go back to it sometimes because you don't even realize you're watching Little House on the Prairie
Really?
because it's just so grotesque and just so bizarre. And he got really experimental in those last seasons, for sure. But it's a fantastic show, and I swear by it. So anytime I have the pleasure to kind of promote that, I do. But
That's so funny.
people people think I'm yeah.
It's a little hint of gold, I guess.
Yeah, so it's not the typical answer that someone would give, I guess, but um, it's funny because then his sons, at least his one son, I think both of them actually became filmmakers, and Michael Landon Jr., I believe, was behind the Paranormal Activity movies.
Really?
Yeah, he's one of the big producers and one of the writers, I think. If I'm not mistaken. I'll have to fact check that. But
Evan say we should watch on Rabbit. We'll do a binge watch.
yeah.
um, Chimney Cricket wants to know, how do you find actors and actresses for your films? Is there a website you post on, or do you rely on things like word of mouth and social media?
All the above. Not so much social media. I'm not a big social media guy. I mean, I have maybe posted some ads there once in a while, but mostly I go through the big casting networks in Los Angeles, and I just kind of cast from there. And depending on my resources, it's either union or non-union. But and you just gotta write a great detailed kind of synopsis of your film and descriptions of the characters, and be very detailed and be very clear and honest about what you're looking for, and you'll find the right people. It's just sometimes it takes more than one session. But yeah, no, I've worked with very talented actors on both union and non-union, and it just depends on what your resources are and what you're looking for, I guess.
TSA Dino wants to know, what are some common misconceptions and myths about being a writer, director, or editor?
Um, I would say the common misconception is that we're egomaniacs, but that's true. So that's not a real conception. Um, I don't know that we don't sleep because we don't. But I don't know if I think maybe everything that you assume is correct. Anyways,
Right.
I don't know if there's any common misconceptions other than we're not necessarily the healthiest people, and we don't sleep very much, and we just keep trucking until the project's finished. So
Right. Always living on a prayer, basically.
yeah, pretty much.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have one more question for you before you go. I ask everyone this
Okay,
question, no matter how stupid it is. Please answer. But if you could
okay.
bring any superhero with you into the zombie apocalypse, who would it be?
Superhero. I feel like I'm not allowed to say Batman because he's not exactly a superhero, is he?
I mean,
Um,
he's technically a superhero. I mean, it works. Like,
yeah, I would say Batman, but Batman from Mask of the Phantasm. Like that's specific. The animated Batman. That's the one I want. That guy was that guy was pretty hardcore. So, um, and I'm not not too big of a fan of the Christopher Nolan Batmans, honestly, and even less so the newer ones. Um, I really liked the animated series. That was kind of my thing as a kid. So
yeah, I had a discussion with someone the other day just about how, like, DC animation is more superior than all of the above.
yeah, and that's not even really a world that I'm too into, to be honest with you. But there's definitely those few projects like the animated Batman was really something I enjoyed. So
Okay, he's gonna be in the apocalypse with you, but he's gonna be animated. Like, so he
yeah,
can't be
yeah,
killed. He's just
exactly.
animated.
Everyone else is live action except for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time and educating us about, like, your life and how everything actually works. It was all, like, really interesting, and I hope you had fun.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and good luck in everything else you do.
Thank you. Well, you stay on for a second. I'm just gonna say bye to chat,
Yeah.
and then I'll say bye to you.
Okay.
But chat, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Make sure you stay. I will be ending the stream, but then I will be going live like 5 minutes later for our community game night. So hold on, and we'll be right back.